Connected with Institute for Essential Services Reform, or IESR, C20 co-chair and executive director Fabby Tumiwa. Good afternoon, Fabby. Thank you for joining us on the 3 Hour News Show. So we want to talk about renewable energy for Indonesia. This is a big topic, and we're pushing forward to Indonesia to be green in all of the sectors, especially in energy sector. So the government intends to reach a renewable energy proportion of 23% of total energy sources by 2025. So what does the government need to do to meet the target?
Well, if we look at this target, right, 23%, and to meet this 23% renewable energy share, well, based on our calculations, additional 13 to 14 gigawatt of renewable power capacity must be built from now until 2025. So about 10 gigawatt will be built under PLN 2021-2030 capacity expansion plan, when we call it RUPTL. So there is still like 3.4 gigawatt gap of this capacity to meet that 23%. So actually this gap can be filled by rooftop solar, because as the rooftop, as also we know, Indonesia has a huge potential of solar energy. The technology makes it possible to be built faster in the short term, and also the cost is very competitive right now. And it can be built by non-PLN. Actually, we call it gotong royong for renewables. So I think that's makes this 14 gigawatt to be built. And to meet the target, actually the government must make sure that the PLN got the plan as to build like around 10 gigawatt. Government has to facilitate a foreign and direct investment, because it should be with the participation of private sectors, by removing the barriers and improve Indonesia renewable energy investment attractiveness. In particular for rooftop solar, just last year, government issued a ministerial regulation number 26/2021 that allow PLN customers and other customers also to install rooftop solar. So if this regulation being implemented, which is better than previous regulation, we see that this 3.2 to 4 gigawatt to be built by 2025 is actually, from solar, is actually doable.
Well, Fabby, that's very interesting, but we still have a long way to go to be able to maximize the potential of renewable energy here in Indonesia, because we do have a lot of resources available here. But what are the challenges and difficulties in actually developing renewable energy that makes it seemingly more difficult for us right now to maximize?
Well, if you look at the past development of the energy system in Indonesia is heavily built based on fossil fuel, right? There is a conventional wisdom that in the past that coal, for instance, is the cheapest of electricity sources. Well, it is not true. Coal, because of the government policy, it seems cheaper, but it's not actually cheap. Also, environmentally, it's very volatile. So in the past, the energy system development plan is actually based on this fossil fuel. The thing is that to shift the plan from this fossil fuel to renewable is not easy, because you need to adjust a lot of things, including the grid, and we have to consider demand and supply situations. But in general, I think the reason why it's very difficult to develop renewables, because also there is a perceived risk and risk associated to invest in renewables. As I mentioned earlier, when we would like to build renewable, is about investment, and investors not really convinced with PLN intention or government policy and regulatory framework that seen as a flip-flop in the past few years. So they see this as a risk. Second, very, very important also, in the past, the bankability of the business of renewable is really, really poor. So it's not easy to get finance. The regulation makes a margin of the investor very, very low. Plus additional risk in regard to like land acquisitions, grid access, long delay PPA, that add to the risk and makes many investors and developers actually see this as not really attractive to build renewable.
All right, so now the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources has taken various steps to create renewable development that is sustainable. One of which is by reducing and eliminating the use of steam power plants, or PLTU. So, Pak Fabby, what is your take on this one?
Well, it has been announced last year, right, that Indonesia will stop building new coal-fired power plants after the completion of the 35 gigawatt program, as well as to retire coal-fired power plant. Well, it could be early retirement or those power to not continuing coal plants that has reached its economic lifetime. Well, the true motivation for this is actually to cut the emission. As
That's
Indonesia part of the Paris Agreement parties, we need to reduce the emission before 2030, and by retiring this coal plant, it could reduce around 10% of our emission from power sectors. So I think it is a good step, and also by reducing this coal-fired power plant, we can add more renewable into the system. So it will create kind of the balance. To meet this Paris Agreement target, 1.5 degrees, as agreed right now, we need to have at least between 45 to 50% in our energy mix come from renewable by 2030. So it requires the declining of coal plants capacities in the next 10 years.
Wow. I mean, for Indonesia, we have a lot of coal, and for a country like Indonesia, or maybe China and India, we are very much depending on coal as well. What is your take on this?
Yes, indeed. But that's we also know that coal is actually not cheap, and coal is not actually environmental friendly. So we have to start phase down the coal. Well, coal will not just gone tomorrow or in the next few years. It requires kind of such a planning, because we have to address the impact of this, including as we see coal also part of our revenue for national revenue and also local government revenue sources. So we have to think how to transform our economy. So when we stop using coal, we still grow, and also there's alternative revenue. So it's kind of the challenge, not only for power system, but also transforming our economic system to become more green and resilient, I think. But that's the challenge for country like Indonesia and also other countries that depends on coal.
Pak Fabby, you mentioned something really interesting, that the challenge is actually the investment in renewable energy power here, because we know that we need a lot of infrastructure rebuilding and everything. It requires a lot of investment. Now, I've read here a statement that the government is working on financial or regulatory incentives to make these investments possible. What is your take on this? Because according to this, last year or since 2016, there has been a couple of amendments that actually renewable power projects may obtain incentives from central and or regional governments in form of something like fiscal incentive, facilities for licensing and non-licensing, and subsidies. Do you think this is attractive enough? I mean, they did pass a couple of amendments in the last couple of years. Will this change the future for us?
Well, we have to appreciate effort of government. The question is, what I would like to pose is that whether such kind of incentive is actually fit for purpose. You see that when we talk about renewables, there's a couple of based on the technology. So you have hydro, you have geothermal, you have solar, you have wind, you have biomass, right? So because the technology maturity and the risk for each technology is different, so incentive that related to reduce the risk and to increase the bankability or for the project, it has to be different. So I think what government has to do is actually evaluate whether their incentive actually effective, is a fit for purpose, is based on the technology, and it's more important, I think, the effectiveness to reduce the risk of for each project. So when we talk about the risk of each project, is you see there is a couple of risk source of the risk,
Yeah.
and I think incentive alone is not sufficient because we need to improve other things. For instance, the option of the PLN is one of the risks. The second, power purchase agreement negotiation for the IPP is the source of risk. So government has to look also non-fiscal incentive to improve the attractiveness of investing in renewable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, this is the last question, Pa Fabby. You are the C20 co-chair, and this is something that, can relate between the aspiration of the people, of the civic, and the government. So, do you think what the government is doing right now to present at the G20 is enough or sexy enough for the coming G20 here in Indonesia? Or do we need another breakthroughs, more breakthroughs?
Well, one of the priorities of G20, Indonesia G20 presidency is a sustainable energy transition. I think the objective of this to accelerate energy transition, global energy transition, and I think it matched with the current situation and the necessity as we last year announced in Paris, and the world confirmed that we have to accelerate global energy transition to meet this Paris Agreement target. I think the priority is actually right. What we expect that Indonesia can really work together with the other country to come up with a clear result to support better energy access. There is a technology transfer, increasing green jobs, and build our manufacturing capability on renewable energy, as well as make it financing available to support energy transition in Indonesia and in other countries.
Right.
What I think is very, very important is one of the outcomes is that G20 countries should have renewable energy target in the outcome of this G20 negotiation, and that actually could guide G20 countries to accelerate their energy transition.
Right. All right, Fabby Tumiwa, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the insights here in the 3 Hour News Show. Take care, sir.